All right, everybody, this is 9.2, factoring quadratic trinomials. All right, so we're getting to this is like the culmination of this unit, okay, is being able to factor something that looks like this and have it written like that, okay? So, and that's pretty much what we've done in the past. So let's kind of look and see what we did, and we're going to maybe kind of look at it going backwards. So in the past, I think in Unit 8, we would take something like that, and we put the 2x and the plus 1 here, and to distribute, because that's what we'd do is the distributive property, is we would set up this box, would put stuff in there, and would multiply, because that's what distributive property is, okay? So we get 2x times 4x gives you 8x squared, 2x times negative 1 gives you negative 2x, 1 times 4x gives you 4x, and 1 times negative 1 gives you negative 1. So again, it's all multiplication, okay? All right, and then after that, what we did is we combined like terms. So we would take something like 8x squared, and then we combine those. And just for the sake of this, we're going to write this out. So we're going to do like plus, or maybe I'll do the negative first. So the negative 2x plus 4x minus 1, okay? So here we have 4 terms, okay? And basically, last time we talked about how to go from here to be able to get to here, okay? And that's where we took each of those 4 terms and we put those in those boxes, and we took out the greatest common factor for each row and column. So we already know how to do that. What we are focusing a lot today is, so here, if we continued this problem, is we would combine like terms. So we get 8x squared, and we get plus 2x minus 1. So going from here up and splitting it into those 2 numbers is what we're focusing today, okay? So it's not any numbers. You can't just randomly come up with 2 numbers that, add to 2, okay? It also has to do with these, okay? And we'll talk about that as we go along, okay? So notice that when you distribute, you ended up with 4 terms. You then combine like terms, and you end with 3 terms in your final expression, okay? So we're going to basically go backwards through that, okay? So again, always we want to check and see if there's a greatest common factor. Again, I think I'm holding that back for today. I think we're going to add that in a little bit, but just keep that in mind. If we have steps, that should always be the first thing that we check, okay? So the next thing is to do glasses, okay? So when I say glasses, we're going to draw some glasses. You don't need to make it be fancy. You don't need to make things like that or anything, okay? But when I say glasses, that's what I'm talking about. What we're doing here is doing multiplication. We're going to multiply those 2 numbers. That gives you negative 8x squared, okay? And we need to find 2 things that multiply to that, okay? So I think on our first lesson we did something like this. And it needs to add or subtract to give us 2x. So that's the middle term, okay? So this is how you can figure out how to break this number into 2 parts so that we can do grouping using our box. All right, so here, again, we did this in 9.0, so if you haven't watched that video, watch that. But basically what we did is we said we're going to focus with the multiplication. We need to find something that multiplies to 8 or negative 8. But really what we do to start is we just write down factor pairs for 8. So like 1 and 8 or 2 and 4. Those are the only things that can multiply to 8. Okay? But we know that one of those has to be negative to make it be a negative 8. All right, so it looks like we would have to do the 2 and the 4. But which one needs to be negative? We need it to give us a 2, so we'd need to do 4 minus 2. If you did 2 minus 4, then you'd get a negative 2. So we'd want to do what did it say, 4 and minus 2, and 4 times negative 2 gives us the negative 8. So those are the two things that would make that work. Okay, so this is just, again, like the puzzle that we did in 9.0. I think what I typically do is I write my factor, or my two things that I need to multiply by, because oftentimes when we do, like, and we haven't talked about that, is factor trees, but usually I do this for my multiplication, and then I go like this to make my addition. So I do something like this. So it needs to add to give us 2x, and needs to multiply to negative 8x squared. So what would make that work? Well, that we said was 4x minus 2x. Okay, and that gives you 2x. All right, so anyways, we found those two things. We can break that number, that 2x, into two parts. So in effect, we're going to have 8x squared, but instead of having 2x, we're going to have 4x minus 2x, and then we still have that minus 1. Okay, so now we have four terms. We can do grouping. So we'll do 8x squared, 4x minus 2x minus 1. And then we can do what we did last time, was we could take out the greatest common factor for each row and column. So here we could take out a 4 and an x. Again, here, the next row we have a leading negative, and what goes into both of those would be 1. Greatest common factor for the first column would be 2 and an x. And for the second column, it looks like we could take out a 1. Okay. Again, we only take out a leading negative if it's like the first number that you come to, or here the top to bottom. Okay, so this one we would take out a negative. All right, so now we have our answers. Again, we just write it as a binomial, so we got 2x plus 1 and 4x minus 1. Okay, so again, the only thing that's really new today is trying to figure out what multiplies and adds. And maybe I'll just start doing it like that, since that's what we did for our 9.0. Okay, so that's all we're really doing. We're going to do a couple more examples. All right, so again, first thing, greatest common factor, there isn't one. So next we would do glasses. You need to find two things that multiply to negative 12, x squared, and needs to add to give us 11x. Okay, so again, I would recommend, if you're stuck, to write down factor pairs for 12. So 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. Again, the only thing that's going to give us 11 is going to be 1 and 12. And one of them needs to be negative. Okay, how do we know? Well, because when we multiply, it has to give us a negative 2. So if we did something like 12 and a negative 1, that would give us a negative 12. And 12 minus 1, I guess we should probably do x's. Okay. And that does give us 11x. All right, so that gives us the things that we need. So again, we can just type that 3x squared, that always goes in that box, and the constant always goes over here. So all we need to do is take those two other things and put them in our box. So we got 12x and a negative 1x. Okay. All right, now we do the greatest common factor. So we've got 3x, and here we got a negative 1. In this column, we have what? X. And in the second column, looks like we could take out a 4. And again, we can always multiply it back and make sure it matches. So 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times 4 is 12x. Negative 1 times x is negative 1x. And negative 1 times 4 is negative 4. So that worked out just great. And then we just need to write down our answer. So 3x minus 1 and x plus 4. All right. So here's another. If you would, pause and give this one a try. So again, we need to find something that multiplies to negative 30a squared and needs to add to negative 13a. All right, let's see. So again, I'd write down factor pairs for 30, 1 and 30, 2 and 15. Ooh, that looks like that might work. Okay, so I don't need to write them all down. If you see something that looks like that could work, then stop and look at that for a little bit. Looks like we could do negative 15 plus 2x would give us negative 13x. Or sorry, these are a's. Okay, and then if we multiplied negative 15a times 2a does give us negative 30a squared. All right, so again, basically these two numbers, we're going to put that in place of that. So again, you're welcome to write that out again if you want. That will give us what? Negative 15a plus 2a minus 6. But again, we're going to put it in this box anyway. So we already know that this needs to go here, this needs to go here. And those two terms that you came up with, that's going to go here and here. And it doesn't really matter which one goes in which box. It'll work out either way. So just keep that in mind. All right. So here, greatest common factor for the first row. Looks like we do 5a. And this row, 20 and 6. Maybe 2. And then this row, looks like just an a. And the last row, we have a leading negative, and looks like we could do 3. So again, we can multiply those back and make sure that all works out. Oh, I see, look here. So this works out good, 5a times a, but here, 2 times a, it needs to be 20. So I can take out a 5 here. Okay. But that still doesn't give us 20. Did I make a mistake here? Oh, bother. Okay, so I'm going to have to look at this, and I don't want to waste your time. Oh, wait, okay, I'm sorry. I don't know where I came up with this 20. It's just 2a. Okay, I don't know why that happened. So it's just a 2a, Mr. Warner. Okay, so then that was all good anyways. We already got it, okay? So those are your answers, 5a. But we learned a lesson, right? We learned that you can multiply back, and it should give you what you started with. And if it's not, then you need to go back and look at it again. Okay? So that all works out now. So we got 2a, and we got negative 6, and here we got negative 15a, and 5a squared. Okay. Here's last two. If you want to go with it with me, that's great. Okay, again, glasses. So we need to find two things that multiply to negative 9x squared and needs to add to give us 8x. Right? Factor pairs for 9 are 1 and 9 and 3 and 3. So the only thing that's going to make that work would be 1 and 9. And one of them would need to be negative. So something like negative 1 plus 9. That would give us 8. And negative 1 times 9 gives us negative 9. So again, we have these x's. Probably should always put those there. Okay, so again, we have our x squared here. And our negative 9 goes here. And then we take these two boxes, or two terms, back into our box. So negative 1x and 9x. Greatest common factor for each row. And here another x. And then here and negative 1. We could multiply that back to check. No, that's what I meant to do. So we've got x plus 9 and x minus 1. Okay, and here's one more example. So again, glasses. Two things that multiply to 6n squared and add or subtract to give us a negative 7n. So factor pairs for 6 is 1 and 6, or 2 and 3. So 2 and 3 can't give us 7, so 1 and 6 would have to. All right, but this is a negative and this is a positive, which means that when we multiply, they're both going to need to be negatives. Okay, so that will give us a positive 6n squared n. And then if you add those or subtract them, so that would give us a negative 7n. So we've got our n squared and our 6 here from our glasses. And then we have the two things that we kind of broke into two parts, so negative 1n minus 6n. That comes from here. All right, so we can take out an n and a negative 1, and here an n and a negative 6. So we've got n minus 1 and n minus 6. Okay, so that's it. If you have any questions, let me know. We'll be doing a lot more of this. So if you're not feeling quite there yet, we'll be doing some more of that in the next few lessons. All right, thanks.